Hey y'all, welcome back. My name is Christina, and in these videos we are going through this book together that is Tracy Hogg's The Baby Whisperer Solves All Your Problems. I am not affiliated at all with this book. I'm just a mom who tried it out and absolutely loved it. Today we're going to be taking a look at chapter 9, and that is essentially her potty training chapter. And I love this chapter a lot. Tracy has such a unique approach about potty training, and it's one of her, what she calls her middle of the road techniques. Also, you might hear my daughter in the background. She just went down for a nap. We kind of just had a stimulating afternoon, so she's just kind of talking to herself before she falls asleep. Anyway, like all of Tracy's techniques, she really talks about, with potty training, making sure that you are patient, that you don't push your child, and that you're leading your child, you're not following them, but that you are paying attention to their cues and how they are taking things. She starts off the chapter kind of talking about recent statistics of potty training. Most parents are actually postponing potty training right now. That's kind of the recent trend, that some parents are waiting till later. It kind of used to be the thing to wait until they were 2, and now more parents are waiting until 3 or 4 before they actually start potty training. And this is because of, I think, 2 things. One is disposable diapers. Obviously, these disposable diaper companies want us to keep using their diapers. So a lot of times Pampers and other companies like that will advertise that it's better to train your child later. And I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but there is a big trend about child-centered training, and there's a big trend about child-centered everything else as well. But especially with potty training, a lot of parents will follow their child, and they'll wait for their child to be interested in potty training before they actually start doing it with them. And potty training can be a really stressful thing, because we're talking about something that you and I do very easily on a daily basis, and it's difficult for our children to do, and it can result in a mess that we don't want to clean up. Most people have a difficult time even getting to the point where they can change their child's diaper. I think especially dads. Is that just me? I think almost every dad I know is just completely disgusted by changing their daughter's diaper, and not daughter, but their baby's diaper, and every single mom I know is just like, yeah, you just gotta do it. It's probably because we're around it more, honestly, but I expect that with potty training it's kind of a similar thing, but we know that our child might have an accident somewhere. They might ruin our carpet, they might ruin our floors, they might pee on stuff, and that's kind of a scary thought, especially when we're taking off the diaper for the first time. That's been our security for so long. It's easy to be stressed about this. We're dealing with messes, we're dealing with tantrums, we're dealing with something a little scary and challenging. So Tracy's main tip is that we just need to relax. We shouldn't have a timetable for how long it might take our child to learn, and we shouldn't be stressed about it going perfectly. It's going to happen. It's just another milestone in our child's development. They learned how to eat on their own, they learned how to walk, they learned how to talk, maybe they're even speaking depending on your child's age, things like that. And so they're going to learn how to use the toilet properly and how to control their movements. We just have to give it time, and our child will just master it whenever they do. So when it comes to potty training, Tracy kind of lays out this spectrum, and she says that she's in the middle of the spectrum. So on one end we have what's called elimination communication, or like diaperless babies. It can be called either thing. And on the other end we have what we talked about with child-centered training, which can even cause you to wait until your child is 4 years old to start potty training them. So I actually was really interested in elimination communication before my daughter was born, and probably after she was born. That's when you basically just try to have your baby go diaperless. You learn their cues, you watch them, and you try to catch their poop and their pee. And obviously they're not going to have any ability to get to the toilet themselves, but the goal is actually to start from birth, at the latest starting at 3 months. So this was something I was interested in. I really liked the idea of, it's kind of this underlying idea of treating your child with respect, understanding that nobody wants to be walking around with a wet or a soiled diaper, and teaching them a skill from birth so that just as soon as they can comprehend it, they basically have it mastered. I quickly realized how difficult it would be, since basically all the work is on the parent at that point. And I was more concerned with the first 3 months of my daughter's life of getting her to sleep and eat well. I was not concerned at all about where she pooped or peed. So by 3 months, I knew I was just gonna give that up. Also, there tends to be kind of, at least with like the book I read on it and people who support that, it's not necessarily toilet centered. It's more just like the goal is to be diaperless. It doesn't matter where your child uses the bathroom. And I didn't like that either. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Tracy's approach and why I do like it. But essentially, if my child's not going to go in their diaper, I want them to go in the toilet. I don't want them to go outside. I don't want them to go in a bucket or in a weird hat-shaped thing. So that was kind of my detraction from that movement. It just seemed a little too extreme. And two, like I cloth diaper, so I hate disposable diapers personally. I have to use them sometimes. But I kind of get the desire to be diaperless, but I do think it is necessary to have diapers at some point. Anyway, and then the other end of the spectrum is the child-centered training. So that is just following your child. You never mention the bathroom, you never mention anything until they bring it up, and they could be pretty old before they do that, but they probably will get the hang of it quicker because they'll be older enough to understand and to follow instructions and to do things well. And I am against this approach because your child might, like, obviously they're gonna be ready at some point, they're gonna realize it's gross, but I don't want to be changing diapers for 3 or 4 years. I don't want to be pinning my 3-year-old to the ground because they pooped themselves. That's not appealing to me. I've actually babysat a boy before who, he was 3 and he was potty trained, but he just hated using the bathroom, and he actually pooped himself while he was playing while I was watching him. And he was 3 years old and it was terrible. And I did not have my own child at this time, so I was just like, I cannot believe that anyone would allow this to happen. But personally, I was just completely like, that really discouraged me from waiting that long. I just think that is way too long to wait personally. I have heard the argument that apparently when children are potty trained, they can be pushed too hard to like hold their urine in essentially, and they end up having a lot of UTIs. And so I've heard that parents will actually wait until 3 or 4 years old because they don't want their child to have so many UTIs. But I believe that only happens with traditional potty training, which is not what we're going to be talking about today. And traditional potty training methods, it almost seems like every book out there is about potty training your child as fast as possible. You wait until they're 2 years old, and then you just try to rush them into normal underwear or into pull-ups or something like that. And I personally think that that would cause UTIs. Your child is having a lot of stress holding their bladder for the first time of their life. And so I prefer Tracy's approach, which actually has you start at 9 months of age, but it has you go very slow. And there's no deadline for when your child will be done. But if you're starting by 9 months, she actually says that your child might be fully potty trained around 18 months, which to me would be amazing. But everyone looks different. It depends on how consistent we are as parents. I do appreciate the slow approach because that's how we learn skills. Like I mentioned earlier, using the bathroom, using the toilet is just another skill that we acquire. And we did not have a time set for how quickly our child needs to walk. Like, oh, we need to do it in a weekend before I go back to work Monday. I think that our child would have a more difficult time walking if they were rushed into it as well. Of course, I'm sure we are all impatient for our child to hit some certain milestones, but if you just wait, it happens. And that's kind of how Tracy is looking at potty training as well. So we're just gonna take a look. She kind of breaks potty training into 3 age groups. We're gonna look at 9 to 15 months, then 16 to 23 months, and then 2 to 3 years. We're gonna start with the 9 to 15 months, obviously. And she says that this is basically the best time to start potty training. It seems kind of random, like 9 months, why then? It's this perfect mix of usually at 9 months your child is physically able to sit on the toilet. They definitely don't have any trouble sitting up on their own. And they also are young enough to desire to obey you. So this is usually the big problem that parents have once their child hits 2 and they start potty training then, is you have power struggles over potty training. And we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. But when you start earlier than 2 years, then you're going to have, you're not gonna be met with any resistance. Your child still expects to be learning and picking up things from you. And if you start them young enough, then they'll just be used to it. Like they won't even remember a time where they weren't sitting on the toilet. If you are looking to start, then once your child gets around 9 months, you want to be looking for some signs of readiness. Most parents might be looking at signs of readiness listed online. She kind of lists out a couple of signs of readiness in the book, but you really don't need to look out for those signs. So I was interested in starting this at 9 months. So as we approached the 9-month mark with our daughter, I was observing her behavior. I was making note of her pre-elimination behavior, so what she looked like before she pooped or peed, so that I would know. Also tracking the times of days that she would usually eliminate, and just thinking in my mind out, like letting my mind play out of how it would go. So I did buy the materials that I needed in order to potty train her shortly after she turned 9 months. And essentially when you are ready to start, you want to get them a seat for the toilet. And Tracy really emphasizes that we should just go straight to the toilet. It's a whole other transition to teach your child how to go in like a floor potty, and then to try to get them to transition to a full-size toilet. Why not just start them on the toilet? And I completely agree with that, because if they go on the floor potty, you still have to clean it up. And to me, the whole point of potty training, toilet training, is that you don't have to clean up anything. That's what is so ideal to me, especially because I cloth diaper. I usually will have to clean up her diapers anyway. So whenever we do get her to go in the toilet, it's amazing. Like, I get to not clean a diaper. So you're gonna wanna get a toilet seat reducer, and you're going to want it to be small enough. I'll make another video at some point where I actually show my setup of what I have, but I really tried to find a toilet seat that had a smaller hole, because my daughter was so small. She's 9 months, and she's usually on the smaller side anyway whenever it comes to her growth curve. And so I just didn't want her to feel like she was gonna fall in. She's not really old enough, I don't even know still, to think she might fall in. But I just went and I found one that I felt like was small enough for her. And then you want to get a step stool as well. And Tracy talks about how step stools really provide comfort for your child, because they can put their feet on them and they don't feel like they're dangling and that they're gonna fall. I could not find a step stool that was tall enough when my daughter was 9 months to reach her feet. Her feet, basically she could pull her feet up on the top of the toilet at that age. And so there's nothing that goes all the way up to the actual toilet seat. So I just got the tallest thing I could find. She still can't reach it actually, but I am trying to put it under her now. She can kind of reach it if she points her toes down a little bit. But you do want to have that step stool and have it there and be a regular thing, so that eventually when they can actually physically climb up onto the toilet by themselves, they know how to do it. And between 9 and 15 months, they might not actually get to that point yet. Then you'll also want a couple of toys or books that you can have just exclusively for when they are sitting on the toilet. It just, you just have to sit there, and sometimes you have to wait for a little bit, though you're never gonna wait for more than 5 minutes at a time. But I often would have her play with some bath toys or with some specific books. If you have any books about like potty training, then that's a great time to break those out as well. Just really anything that can entertain them for a couple of short minutes while they sit there. So like I mentioned, when you are ready to start, you do want to keep track of your child's cues, of their rhythms, so that you know. And you do want to start kind of a dialogue about using the bathroom. So if you notice that they are pooping or they're about to poop, you want to point that out. You want to say, it looks like you're about to poop. And you can do this before you even actually start putting them on the toilet, just to kind of get them familiar with the vocabulary. Or when you are using the bathroom, you can say, I need to go pee. I'm going to the toilet. And kind of explain what you're doing. I'm assuming, at this age, like I honestly, my daughter still comes to the bathroom with me. I can't leave her alone. I'm assuming that's probably the same for you. So it's really easy to talk about it when it's like, guess what I'm doing? And I also started to talk to her about like the process of going to the bathroom. So first I'm gonna take off my clothes, then I'm gonna sit on the toilet, then after I go, I'm gonna wipe, flush, put my clothes back on, and wash my hands. And that's something I would explain to her as well when I started putting her on the toilet. So I got all these materials to start potty training after she was 9 months. And I tried it for the first time. So the very first time you do it is in the morning when they wake up. So this is kind of the adaptation of her easy routine. That's EASY. You're gonna adapt it into EEASY. And so that's going to be eliminate first. It's gonna be that first E. So you wanna wait till 9 months because they also don't really need to be fed immediately the first thing when they wake up in the morning. And you just go ahead, when you change their diaper, you just leave it off and you sit them on the toilet. And you always say, it's the time to sit on the toilet. You never ask. Obviously at this point, they're not gonna really have a response, but you tell them, you say, now it's time for us to sit on the toilet, and you just see how it goes. So the first time I did that, my daughter did not take it very well. She was fine. She wasn't like afraid or anything, but she clearly wasn't, I don't even know how to describe it. She just was too young. I don't think she was ready, and she's a textbook baby, so I thought she would be, but it was clear to me. I actually tried it for about a week. I didn't just give up after the first time. And it was just clear to me that she wasn't gonna get it. It was also December, so we were going to be traveling in a few weeks. So I just decided, because I didn't want to do it while I was traveling, to wait until January when she was closer to 10 and a half, 11 months, and then to start then. So that is what I ended up doing. And the second time I restarted, it was totally different. She got it. And of course, the first time that you sit them on the toilet, basically it's gonna be an accident whenever they go. And when I did sit her on the toilet in December, she would accidentally go. And what you do when they do go is you applaud. This is the one time Tracy says it's okay to go completely overboard with the praise, because that's actually how they make the mental connection of, oh, I just pushed, I heard this tinkling noise, and then my parents, they're ecstatic. This is a good thing. I should keep doing this. And so that kind of helps to make that connection. So that's what you do, is you applaud, you cheer them on, you explain to them, you just peed in the toilet. Even if they don't actually go, you can kind of talk about it like, we're sitting here just in case you need to pee, things like that. So when I started and she started going in January, it was really exciting. We would put her on first thing in the morning, and then we would put her on the toilet after every single nap that she had, and then we'd put her on before bed. And Tracy says to start slow, but you don't want to just start like 1 or 2 times a day. You want to start regularly. So we would always start after wake ups and before bed. And then if she was going to take a bath, we would sit her on before a bath as well. And then Tracy also mentions that you should put them on about 20 to 30 minutes after they have a drink. And that was a difficult thing for me to figure out. At this age, my daughter, she doesn't just sit and have, I was still breastfeeding, and so those were the only times that she would actually sit and have a drink. But for the most part, because she was using a sippy cup, the rest of the day, she just sips on it here and there. And I was having a difficult time pinpointing exactly when I should put her on so that she could pee. I would try to do it about 20 to 30 minutes after breastfeeding, and it just never worked. I couldn't figure out the timing of when she was peeing. So I kind of gave up on it. But I did start recently doing that again. I still haven't figured out exactly when she pees, like between her like wake time, essentially, between her naps. But I think just putting her on regularly at intervals is what is the helpful thing. So now whenever we run errands and we go out to the store, I always put her on before we go. I try to put her on after we get back from somewhere, things like that. So what's really important is to have consistent intervals of time when your child can actually expect to go to the bathroom. And I've also just put her on the toilet before naps as well. And I've had several naps where she's just completely dry. She goes before the nap and after, and her diaper's dry the whole time. It's really great. It's also important to try to make hand washing a part of the ritual. I think this was the hardest thing for me when I started, was trying to figure out the semantics of it. Like, I'm just saying put your child on the toilet, but you need to take off their pants. You need to take off their diaper. Are you gonna do that in the bathroom? Are you gonna do that on the changing table and then move them? Like, you have to figure out your process and your setup. I guess it depends on the time that we're putting her on the toilet, but essentially if we are waking her up from a nap, we'll put her on her changing table, take off her old diaper, put that away, and then grab a new one, and then we'll go to the bathroom bottomless, essentially. But if it's ever throughout the day or before a nap, we usually just stay in the bathroom and I change her on the floor. I also stopped using onesies at this time as well. The onesies that snap underneath their diaper, it's just like complicated at this point. And I would have times where I would see she's about to poop and I would have to kind of rush her to the toilet. So I'd have to grab her, and it was just hard to, like, if you're pulling down their pants and then you have to unsnap their shirt, and then we do cloth diapers, so you have to unsnap the diaper. It was a lot. And so I just completely got rid of all onesies. I haven't bought a onesie since, and just do normal t-shirts. Then also with wiping, when I first started, I would still wipe her with wet wipes, and I would try to do it while she was sitting on the toilet, kind of explain to her we're wiping, but I would throw the wipe in the trash, not in the toilet. And then I got to a point where she actually was interested in helping wipe, so we started wiping with toilet paper, and the toilet paper goes in the toilet. And now I'm at a point where I wouldn't do that with poop. Usually I would just help her wipe when she peed, but now we're doing both. If your child has a more sensitive bottom, you can always just continue with the wipes and throw them away until you think that they can handle the toilet paper. But really, the toilet paper, when they just poop directly in the toilet, there's not that much to wipe. It's really, really great compared to a diaper. And we would flush the toilet together. I usually get her dressed on the floor, and then we move her step stool over to the sink. And she's not really tall enough to reach the sink yet, but what we try to do is kind of prop her up and help her wash her hands afterwards. That is something that we did start doing at the beginning, the hand washing, and then we just got tired of doing it. We weren't consistent, but now we've started doing it again. And I'll only wash her hands if she's actually used the bathroom, because that's when we actually wipe. So if she has just sat there for 5 minutes and has not done anything, then we just put her clothes back on and then we just leave. We don't do anything more. But the washing your hands can be helpful, even if it's just at the beginning, because really we're doing the wiping at that point. We can wash our own hands and explain to them, I'm washing my hands because I wiped you when you start wiping yourself, and you can wash your own hands then. It's really up to you. You kind of just got to figure out something that works for you. The whole thing can seem really daunting because we're really doing most of the work, but it is so rewarding. Let me tell you, my daughter, she's not like extremely consistent with using the bathroom. We never know when she'll actually go. She has pretty regular like bowel movements, so we can easily predict that. But it is such a win when she goes and we have basically one less dirty diaper to take care of. That is amazing. It's rewarding for us in that. So it's less rewarding for our child at this age, but now we know, like, oh, I guess for most people, if you're using disposables, it might not be as rewarding, but it's just the wiping alone. Like when they poop in a diaper and you have to wipe like all of them, or if they poop and it's a blowout and it goes through their clothes, you don't have to deal with that anymore. It's really great. And so for me, it's worth the effort. We can, you can start anytime between 9 and 15 months and do it this way. I really recommend it as soon as possible. I don't think you need to do it right at 9 months, but I think you should at least start it by a year. My daughter, she's turning 15 months this week, and it's just such a regular part of her life that she's never had a problem with it. There are some times she's not in the mood to sit on the toilet, so we don't do it. If she sits down and she starts crying, no toilet time. I don't want her to associate that with, being forced on the toilet. If it's clear that she does not want to be sitting there, then she usually doesn't have to go. And something we've noticed sometimes is that she'll even like hold it and wait to be sat on the toilet if she knows that it's coming. I'm hoping pretty soon that she'll be able to start going to the bathroom on her own to kind of signal that she needs to go. But I'm not going to expect that. I don't try not to have a timetable for when I want her to be fully trained, but she will probably get there in the next year, probably before she's 2, which is really great to think about. So basically, if you're wondering when you switch them into normal underwear, you wait at this age until their diapers have been completely dry and completely clean for a whole week, and then you can help them into underwear in the daytime. And then for nighttime, you want to wait until all of their diapers are totally dry and clean for 2 full weeks before you can assume that they are ready for underwear. I would be surprised if by 15 months they were ready. But if you've been really consistent and your child's taken it really well, then they could be. Tracy says that she expects it more closer to 18 months, and we'll talk about that in a second. We're going to talk about 16 to 23 months, and that is the second best range to start potty training. And honestly, at this age, it sounds great. I'm hoping that it's clear by the time we get to this age range where my daughter's been doing this already for 6 months that she'll be really comfortable and catch on faster. Your child's understanding is so much more advanced than, you know, when they were 9 months, at 16 months, and they're still cooperative. So if you are training closer to 2 years old, if you know you're around 21 to 23 months, then you might meet some resistance. But usually if you start around 16, 17, 18 months, you're not going to be met with that much resistance. Also, at this age, they're older, they're bigger, and so is their bladders, so they can actually hold more pee. That's one thing where, like, my daughter probably just pees a ton, a little bit every single day, and I can't wait till she just pees more less frequently, if that makes sense. So essentially you start the same way by observing your child's behavior and observing cues and talking to them about potty language. You want to get the same type of toilet seat reducer as well as the same type of step stool. But Tracy says at this age you should get them into underwear. And I don't know how I feel about this. Obviously I don't have a 16-month-old, but my daughter will be 16 months in 1 month, and I don't know where she's gonna be at mentally. So maybe this is something that you would do after they're 18 months rather than at 16, 17 months. But you would take them underwear shopping and let them pick out their big girl, big boy underwear. And what you do is you actually start putting them in the underwear. And before you start though, putting them in underwear, you want to get into the habit of changing their diaper very often so that they understand what dry feels like and that is actually their normal rather than being wet all the time. You'll do the same ritual where you sit them on the toilet in the morning, 30 minutes after meals, after naps, maybe before naps, before bath, before bedtime, whenever you know that they're gonna have a bowel movement. Just you know, follow your child with their cues for that. But because you're putting them in underwear, you're going to actually have accidents at this age. So hopefully starting by putting them in underwear will motivate you to get them on the toilet more, to put them on the toilet before you leave and run errands, maybe as soon as you get to the store, maybe right when you get home after, before you leave the store. You really will be sending them to the toilet a lot. So you want to have a lot of entertaining books and toys for the bathroom as well. But your child, at least by 18 months, is old enough to make the connection really fast, especially if when they go on the toilet you celebrate, you act like they won the lottery, then they're going to make the association and they're going to desire to stay dry. If they do end up pooping in their pants, you want to have them watch you put the poop in the toilet and say, I'll put it in here for you this time, but you do it the next time. So they make the connection of these things are going in the toilet. And so I'm so cloth diapering my daughter. We do put her poop in the toilet when she goes in her diaper. And I just reread this chapter recently and read that line, and I'm gonna start using that if she goes in her diaper. I usually kind of deal with it while she goes off and plays, but instead I definitely will probably start using that line now. So she's just like, oh, that's what came out of me and that's what goes in there. If you do have some resistance at this age, especially if they're closer to 2, then you can wait 2 weeks and then try again. They might just not be ready during this time, especially if they're having accidents. You don't want to use the words smelly or messy or stinky, things like that. Kids at this age don't associate those words with themselves. They have a difficult time with them, I guess. And so it's important to speak positively about your child when they have successes and to avoid speaking negatively about them when they have accidents. They might, if they're old enough, start to make the association that having an accident is a shameful thing, and they can just come to that on their own. So if we perpetuate the shame, then they actually will be more afraid to mess up and then mess up more. We think that they would mess up less at that point, but that's just not how it works. They need to feel confident in their ability to use the toilet, to go to the bathroom, to do it the correct way, and not just afraid of doing it wrong. You at this age would still put them in diapers at night, and once they're dry for 2 weeks at night, then you can switch them into underwear at night as well. Tracy says that the nighttime dryness just naturally follows daytime dryness. So most parents' problems are happening in the daytime, and then their nighttime is not as bad, essentially. Also, what you might be looking for in progress with your child is what they start having control over first. So the first thing you're gonna see them better at is not pooping in their diaper at night. Then you'll see that they're better at using the toilet for poop during the day. Then they should get daytime bladder control third, and then the last thing that they'll conquer is nighttime bladder control. So that's kind of the process of how it should all unfold. If you have a child in this age range and you don't think switching into underwear would be as productive, you can always start them off with the same way that the 9 to 15 month old would go. But if you do start to notice them making that connection very quickly, I highly recommend switching into underwear. With the elimination communication stuff I talked about earlier, they actually have a lot of really cool products in that realm for children under the age of 2 who need underwear or who need other potty training things. So I highly recommend looking into them if you can't find underwear that fits your child, if it's just all too big. They do have something called tiny undies. I believe that they're wool underwear, so they're actually a little bit waterproof, so they won't necessarily make a mess like cotton would. So if you're struggling to find good underwear, you can look there. I think they're just white, so they're not as exciting as going to the store and picking out princess underwear or anything like that, but they are something that might fit your child. Lastly, we're going to talk about 2 to 3 years of age, and this is the hardest time to potty train, but it's when most people potty train. So there's a lot of problems here, a lot of struggles. If you start before 2, you're going to be met with little resistance, and really your only problem is going to be, oh, they just haven't caught on yet. And if we just remain consistent and confident, then they should catch on by age 2. So if you are at this age range, which is when most parents do start potty training, your preparation is going to look the same as the last 2 ages. You're going to get a toilet seat reducer, a step stool for them to get up to the toilet, maybe some activities for them to do in the bathroom. But there's a lot of other tactics out there as well. So there's like rewards charts that parents will do. You can do treats to reward them after they use the bathroom correctly. Whatever tactic, you can do anything that you want that you think will work with your child, but the only thing that will really work is if you are consistent. If you are consistent, then your child will learn. If you do begin potty training and you're met with some resistance, only stop for a day or 2. So if your child is under 2 and you're met with resistance, then you can stop for 2 weeks and then start again. But over 2, you're gonna wanna only stop for a day or 2. Resistance is kind of just a part of toddlers. So we have to recognize, I think a lot of parents might see that resistance might mean, oh, they're not ready to be potty trained, but it's just something that they want to do. They've learned how to resist, they've learned how to have their own will, so we can't necessarily take that as a sign that they're not ready. So we don't want to stop for too long and make them think that they won, but we can take a break and we can try again the next day when they might be in a better mood. At this age, they're more likely to be able to help you change their clothes if they've had an accident, so you can help them even get undressed when they're going to the toilet if they've had an accident as well. Then you can help them get undressed and redressed after that. With 2 to 3 years, you also would start by putting them directly in underwear, making a big deal out of it, taking them to the store, letting them pick it out, and you will also be met with many accidents as well. But you might expect that they'll actually pick it up faster than they would if they were closer to 18 months. And like I said before, definitely don't shame for accidents. We really want to focus on positive reinforcement when it comes to potty training. We want to praise them and reward them when they succeed, and we just need to be okay with it if they fail. And so that can really be a hard time for us as parents. We may have emotions and reactions that we're not even really noticing. So we need to make sure that we keep those in check because our child will pick up on them. If they sense any tension with potty training at this age, they can use that and try to manipulate us during toilet time. And so if they sense that it is a hard or stressful thing for you, they might make it harder or stressful. So really we want to be relaxed as we can. We want to be okay with accidents. One thing Tracy does say is there's like a tactic out there for potty training where you just kind of let your child be naked. And I don't recommend that. Tracy does not recommend that either. The only time they should ever be naked when they're using the bathroom is right before a bath. So you get them ready for the bath, you just plop them on right before and then throw them in the tub. If they are just naked and they pee on the floor, then that can actually just cause more shame and embarrassment, especially at this age, because they know they're not supposed to do that. So it's better that you leave their clothes on and you teach them that taking off their clothes is a part of going to the bathroom. So they should not just wait till the last second and hop on the toilet. They need to think about using the bathroom before so that they have enough time to take off their clothes and get on the toilet before they need to go. Again, just emphasizing here, we never ask if they need to use the restroom or not. We just tell them that it's time. But at this age, it can be helpful to give them what seems like a choice. So we can say to them, do you want to use the bathroom first, or do you want me to use it first? Especially if we also have to go. If we don't have to go, we can just sit there and model waiting. Oh, I guess I don't have to go. Something like that, especially because that is a thing. Children get impatient with just sitting there and waiting. But that is a huge part of it. You can also ask them, do you want to play with a toy on the toilet, or do you want to read a book? Or which book do you want to read? Which toy do you want to play with? You can ask them which underwear they want to wear after they go, or things like that. That kind of gives them the illusion of choice, that they are choosing something, and it helps them to feel more in control of using the toilet. And it also involves them. They feel like they're more of a participant in it than just being forced on the toilet and having to sit there and being tortured. Again, switching to underwear at nighttime only after 2 weeks of dryness. That's usually the safest bet. And just expect that nighttime dryness should naturally follow daytime dryness. Also, something I want to add just for all of these age groups is always sit with your child while they're on the toilet. Make it a fun, engaging activity, especially if they are younger. Try to get on their level, make eye contact with them, be eye level with them, so that they can actually feel like it's a social thing and it's not just being in the bathroom by yourself. Obviously, eventually we want them to go to the bathroom by themselves and to not need us in there, but they're so young and they don't want to be alone in a room sitting on a giant white porcelain thing. So it's just important that we don't sit them on the toilet and go off and do other things, but that we sit with them, and that even though we get impatient as well, that we just take the time out of our day and actually schedule things around using the bathroom instead of rushing them when we're at the store or before we need to run an errand, or if we need to go to an appointment, making sure we give enough time for them to sit on the toilet. That's basically it. I just want to conclude this video by just in the end of this book, she talks about a lot of examples, especially with 2 to 3 year old parents who are struggling to use the bathroom. If you are in that category, then please go ahead and read these stories. They're so helpful. But really the biggest problem is that parents aren't consistent. We start toilet training our 2 or 3 year old, and then the moment we're met with resistance, we stop, and then we try to start again later, they resist, and then we stop. But we really need to be consistent. We need to observe our child. We need to know when that resistance is fear, when it might just be being a toddler, or when it might just not be readiness because of some other issue like a big life change or something like that. So just be aware of your child and who they are. Just be consistent and be slow. Don't rush. They will pick up on it. The bottom line is your child will learn one day. One day they will not be in diapers anymore. And even if around age 2 or 3 we might have another baby on the way and we don't want to have 2 in diapers, we need to not rush them. It's okay if we have 2 that overlap each other for a little bit. The oldest one will learn soon, I promise. If you like this video, please go ahead and like it, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below if you have any questions or concerns or comments or stories, things like that. Go ahead and subscribe so you can stay updated when other videos come out. We're gonna do one last video in this series that tackles chapter 10 of the book. That is the last chapter. That will come out later this week. And I'm excited to wrap up this book. Then in about 2 weeks, I'll be posting shorter videos that have to do with more specific issues. In one of those videos, I plan to show off my potty training setup for when I started my daughter when she was 10 months. Thanks for watching.